Many influencers master a single talent, but that doesn't make them one-dimensional. Basketball star Kevin Love knows this well. The Cavaliers forward is an 11-year NBA veteran who's played in 5 All-Star games and won a championship alongside LeBron James. Off the court, Love has fought for mental health awareness, revealing his own struggle with anxiety. He's here to talk about what it takes to win in sports and business and how to be kind to yourself if it doesn't come easily. Hello and welcome to Influencers. I'm Andy Serwer and I'm here with basketball superstar Kevin Love. Kevin, great to see you here.
Thanks for having me.
So the basketball season's over. The Warriors lost to the Raptors. Maybe I should say the Raptors won.
Yes.
What was your take on that series?
I thought it was a great series. Due to some unfortunate injuries, I think that the Raptors were able to fend off the Warriors. Especially, they did such a great job at Oracle, which is such a tough place to play. We played 4 straight years there in the finals, and it's very, very tough to play at Oracle Arena. We talked about the fans before we came on here, but no, Kawhi, Kyle Lowry, and the rest of that team, Nick Nurse coaching them, I felt they did a really great job executing. Their defense was awesome. A number of guys stepped up. Marc Gasol, Pascal Siakam, Serge Ibaka stepped up, Fred VanVleet. A number of guys on that team really played their role and took it to a new level in the finals, which at that stage is not easy to do, especially being there for the first time.
Were you happy to see the Warriors lose? Did it diminish your victory over them?
No, I mean, I think just knowing, I grew up with Klay Thompson. Kevin Durant is I've known since I was 14 or 15 years old through the AU circuit, traveling basketball growing up. So I just wanted to see, as a fan, a great finals, and being a fan, at least for the global growth of basketball. I think Adam Silver and everybody at the NBA offices have done such a great job with that, but just an international team and having international finals for the first time can only be great for the game and the global expansion. It's awesome to see, and you saw the parade yesterday. That was really special to see.
One thing that marred the parade, though, was a shooting.
I heard
and
that.
The NBA has been vocal about ending gun violence. Did that sort of diminish it in your mind?
I don't think so. I think, obviously that's an unfortunate event, but I don't think the city of Toronto should allow that to put a damper on the day, even though it is tough. I don't think one bad egg should be able to spoil the whole batch, but obviously we wish for a speedy recovery. You never want to see something like that, but I applaud all the fans and internationally all the basketball fans for making that a special day for them, because I've been in those shoes before. As we mentioned, the Warriors as well have been in those shoes for 3 of the years, and it's a special time and it should be celebrated. Finals
didn't get great ratings. Maybe that's because your old
Canada
teammate
did, yeah.
It did. But LeBron wasn't there. Maybe you weren't there. So is the league going to, always need those huge superstars to get those giant ratings, or the big cities? Maybe that was another thing.
Yeah, I think it's definitely big cities, big markets. It's players run this league, I feel like, especially premier players. But it is very tough to see Durant, as we mentioned, go down. It's tough to see Klay go down. But other players had to step up. Kawhi has been such a tremendous player in this league. I think his story, after coming off from injury last year, having been traded to Toronto and coming through and winning the championship is a great story. But yeah, as far as ratings, I think it's definitely a players-driven league, and that continues to or needs to continue to trend in the right direction.
What about this trade the Lakers just did to get Anthony Davis? Right. What do you think about that?
Disruptive. It's going to be interesting to see. On the other side of it, you have David Griffin, who is a general manager who, actually facilitated a trade for me back in the 2014-2015 season to get me on the Cavs. So I knew he'd do the best job. He'd get the best trade and the best value possible from the Lakers, and I felt he did a great job to set up their future. But on the Lakers side of things, speaking of disruption, it's going to be interesting to see how that tandem bodes moving forward, because I think Anthony Davis is 26, LeBron 34, turning 35 at the end of December. And it's going to be, especially with the West now, the West is going to be wide open. There's going to be some of the teams there at the top, like a Denver, like a Houston, but then with the Warriors, they're going to be missing two of, probably the top maybe 5 or 10 players in the league when you talk about Clay and you talk about Kevin Durant all of next season. So it's going to be really, really powerful as far as we mentioned those storylines throughout the season like Kawhi. It's going to be powerful to see what happens. We have the draft this Thursday, and I think July 1 is the start of free agency. So that's what makes the NBA fun.
Yeah.
Is there's a lot of, everybody has the 24-hour news cycles, and there has to be, different things to talk about. But luckily and thankfully for the NBA, there's just that constant.
Right.
Constant storyline with a number of players and a number of teams.
All right, we're going to jump around a little bit here, Kevin. What about Mark Cuban running for president? What do you think about that?
I love Mark Cuban, so I'm for. Was it 2020? Are we going Mark Cuban 2020, 2024?
If you want.
Yeah. No, it's. I think he's done an amazing job, at least as an owner in the NBA. He's. I know from that perspective, I don't know if this translates, to running for office, but he has done a really great job of allowing players to be themselves while also being almost like a player's owner. We always talk about a player's coach, but he's so heavily involved. He sits right by their bench. He travels with them to games. He makes sure they have whatever they need in order for not only longevity purposes, but for that day. So I think some of that stuff actually does transcend into everyday life and the American people. But I only know him as an owner of an NBA team and a team that's done exceptionally well.
You going to Harvard Business School?
I did, yeah. It was the accelerated course. Yeah.
Okay, when was that?
That was a few weeks ago, just after Memorial Day.
What the heck was that like? And were other people in your class? There's some other NBA players or celebrities?
Yeah,
Tell us about that.
Yeah, Luka Mbamute, Julius Randle, Chip and Joanna Gaines, Ciara, just to name a few.
Wow.
Tim Cahill as well, famous soccer star. So we got to play student again. For me, that was, I guess, 12 years and a month ago, I would have taken my last class at UCLA. I was there for probably 9 months. I was a 18-year-old kid or a 19-year-old kid. And no, that was special to be back in that setting and just trying to absorb and be a sponge for growth and learn as much as I possibly could in those 4.5 days.
You consider yourself a business person at all yet? Are you getting into business? And what have you learned about business and how it's connected to sports?
Sure. I think authenticity is huge. I think that word is probably thrown around a lot, and I think that's easy to say, but I feel like I've taken, and I've had a good team that's taken, what is authentic in me and what I really love, and that's, I would say being a mental health advocate as well as health and wellness. I think it's really diving into diet and just, I mentioned that word longevity, just making people better overall, whether it's taking away chronic inflammation, whether it's people feeling every day in their body and mind really, really good, and just creating really a platform for change and for the better moving forward, because I feel like I've not only done that in my life, but have been able to affect people in a major way and been able to elicit change. So yeah, I think moving forward, especially like I mentioned to you, I turned 30 in September, so I want to start looking at life after basketball, but not know that nothing happens without that ball. I've played 11 seasons now, just ended my 11th season on April 9th, and want to hopefully play, we talk about longevity, hopefully play up to 20 seasons if possible, but just try and continue to walk that walk as far as being a basketball player, an influencer in that way, being an advocate for mental health, as well as a business person, but kind of in that realm, because that all means so much to me and making people's lives better.
So you're halfway in your basketball career.
Yeah,
if you're
I think
lucky.
it's a good balance.
Yeah.
Oh, halfway, right. That's tough to say. Actually,
yeah.
Speaking of Kevin Durant, I had a conversation with him in Vegas. I think it was 2 summers ago or last summer, where we talked about him finishing his 11th year, so I guess it would have been last summer, and me finishing my 10th year, and we thought to ourselves, man, we've known each other for so long, and no matter which way you look at it, we're right at the cusp of being over the hill, if you will. So he said, I'm likely not going to play 22 seasons. Anybody making it to 20 is really an unbelievable feat. But that's why I think both of us and a number of players in the league, and you're starting to see a trend earlier on in guys' careers are starting to look at life after basketball and what they can get involved in.
It's amazing. Over the hill at 30 years old. Come
Crazy,
on, man.
right? Just in sports,
I know, right.
burning it at both
But
ends.
you've already had a long career, probably longer than the average NBA player.
Sure.
At 10, I'm sure it's longer than the average,
yeah,
right?
I think it's less than 5. I think
Right,
it's between
exactly.
4 and 5.
Can you talk to us more about your interest in mental health
Sure.
and how you became involed in that aspect
Well,
of your life?
I've been somebody that's dealt with anxiety and depression my entire life, and it wasn't until last year I had an in-game panic attack and told my story for a number of reasons a few months later, and that led me into starting my own fund, the Kevin Love Fund, in September of this last year, that is all about inspiring people to live their healthiest lives while we're looking at and finding ways to provide tools for physical and emotional well-being. So it's everything I mentioned. It's making, for any demographic, because this thing doesn't discriminate, it's making people's lives better. And I think from an emotional standpoint, it's figuring out ways that we can push forward and elicit change in mental health, especially my sole focus and my target, just because I didn't understand it when I was young, would be kids anywhere from like 6 to 18, that demographic. But I think it is going to be interesting to find ways to affect the masses while also places near and dear to my heart. And physically, I think I've seen it, whether it's been close friends, whether it's been family members, whether it's been mentors, that chronic inflammation in your body, finding ways and physical tools in order to help people not have to deal with that everyday pain in their body.
And that's surprising, always surprising when you hear about someone as successful as you
Sure.
are that wrestles with demons, because you always assume that people who've reached your station in life have no problems at all,
Sure.
but that's not the case, right?
It's not the case. I mean, there's 3 people that come to mind. It's Robin Williams, and he had all the success in the world, was one of the all-time comedians, and he dealt with this every single day. Kate Spade, who felt that it would hurt her brand and took her own life, and then Anthony Bourdain, who I loved. I loved his show. I loved what he was about. He's universally well liked. He traveled the world, got to ask the best questions. He ate the best food. Had a beautiful family and had kind of seen it all, done it all, yet, he took his own life. And that, I think, just shows you that success is not immune to depression. There's a vast community, and this really transcends really any walk of life. And if you look at the numbers, it's pretty staggering with people of all ages and every walk of life that deal with anxiety and depression on a daily basis. And I always relate it to, and try to make the analogy of it being like a weighted vest, and changing that relationship with that weighted vest every single day. So I think the thing I always tell people is I don't have all the answers, but it's become, and I feel like I've in a lot of ways found my life's work in finding different ways to maneuver this process of finding out how to help people.
You were brought up in sort of a charmed upbringing, really.
Sure.
I mean, you had a really cool early part of your life. You're born in the LA area. Your uncle was a member of the Beach Boys. I mean, some people don't know that. And then, were an all-star basketball player very early on. What was that like? And tell us about the Beach Boys a little bit as well.
I had a great upbringing as far as being having a dad who played in the NBA, the guy who handed me the ball early on, had an uncle that was in one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time, and music it's timeless. I still listen to this day. So it was definitely a childhood. And speaking of mental health, that you wouldn't necessarily think, okay, that's going to be the kid that has these problems or has to deal with this on an everyday basis. And I think that's I know this is kind of diverting from your question, but it's definitely something that a lot of people don't see. And being in those moments, you just have blinders on this whole time, and no matter what you're subject to or what you deal with as a kid and how your upbringing is or where you grow up, it's going to affect you in one way or another. So it's either going to be internal or external. But no, I did have an interesting childhood, to say the least.
Yeah. And then when you played at UCLA, you were there with Russell Westbrook for one.
I was.
And there was a lot of pressure there, right? I mean, what was that like playing at that storied school?
It was unbelievable. So I had actually been able to develop some sort of relationship with John Wooden, especially before he passed. So that was very special, and being recruited by UCLA really early on in high school. I'd probably say my freshman year of high school. And my dad, he went to Morningside High School in Inglewood, California, and Jim Herrick was his coach, and he had taken the '95 team to the national championship. The famous O'Bannon brothers, Tyus Edney hitting that, I think it was 4.8 seconds to head to the Final Four. And it was just a really, I don't think there's as much a storied program as UCLA, all the national championships, all the incredible players, Lou Alcindor, Bill Walton, probably the two best college players of all time. And then leading into that year where we had Darren Collison, Luka Mbamute, Russell Westbrook, where he wasn't a household name yet. Right. So it was going into the team that was ranked number one in all of Division I basketball. And we made it to the Final Four, lost to a Derrick Rose Memphis team, first year all. 2008 number one seeds had made it to the Final Four, and we just couldn't pull through at the end. But I was very proud of that team.
Did you talk to John Wooden, and if so, what do you remember about those conversations, or what did you learn from him?
A couple things. How sharp he was still at 90 plus years of age. He was reciting poetry, and I can think of a number of. He really loved Abraham Lincoln. And he recited a lot of his poetry as well. I remember his wife, Nell, he had still put, kind of her evening gown on her side of the bed in his small apartment in Encino, California. I remember he had you have all the pillars like almost on this, picketed fence, and they would slide all the mail through there every day that he would get, because he was just not only a world-renowned coach, but he stood for all the right things, had written many books about not only his person, his family life, but what he had learned, a lifetime of observations, and his pyramid of success. So there was a number of things that I feel like I could talk to him. It could be a whole nother segment that we could talk about John Wooden for, but he's a very special human being, and I look back on some of those photos and with him and think that was a very special time.
Yeah, I got to spend a little bit of time with him doing some interviews with some corporate executives, and just the amount of wisdom that he could impart in just a sentence or two was really amazing. A very special person. Let's talk a little bit about the NBA, Kevin, and I'm curious as to your take on why you think the league has been so successful and where you think its shortcomings are.
I think it starts with Adam Silver. I really do. I think he's taken his role as NBA commissioner and I would say not only supported the players in all of the meaningful stuff that we're doing off the floor, but also really pushed us and accelerated us and catapulted us into making change for good. I mean, I look at LeBron James and his I Promise school in Akron, Ohio, which is helping kids not only get into college, but giving them scholarship platforms where they're able to take away some of the financial burden moving forward. And there's been so much change in the greater Ohio area because of that, and I applaud him for that. But whether it be mental health advocacy and so on and so forth, I think the NBA has done a really great job of that. And as I mentioned, with the first international finals, I think just continuing to grow the game and seeing where those markets are for expansion and moving forward with the game globally is really huge. But I think Adam has done an exceptional job and put people around him that have allowed them to have a lot of success. And I know that's on the other side of what we do, the players, but I think it's finding that perfect marriage and synergy to help grow our game, and it's only been able to trend in the right direction, especially since he's taken over the helm.
Should the season be shorter though because of the injuries? What do you think about that? Just a few.
I think it's an interesting concept, but they've done a great job of taking away 3 games, or I would say 3 games in 4 nights, back-to-backs. I think it went from anywhere from 22 to 24 to now 12 to 14. That number could be a little off, but I think that allows us for our bodies to recover. And we talk about longevity because without, I think with that fighting that battle of attrition and seeing players every single night trying to perform on either heavy legs or tough travel schedules takes away from the product. And you have to start from the fan first and work your way back. So I think allowing us to be the best for the fans and being the best version of ourselves for that NBA product on the floor is key. So I think they have done a great job. They've eliminated some of the preseason games. They've started the season actually, I think, 2 weeks sooner now to help spread it out, and allowed for, at least when you make it to the finals now, there's another game in between, or another day in between games to allow players for rest because, as far as rating purposes and that product, I think that's very key.
What have you learned about race, being a white player
Sure.
in a predominantly African-American league?
Of privilege, yeah. I think it's actually Kyle Korver, a teammate of mine and a good friend of mine, actually wrote a great article on the Players Tribune about being white in the NBA. And I think it is, this is a predominantly black league, and African Americans have grown our game in such an exceptional way, in such a big way that you have to tip your hat and give the credit to where credit is due. It's not just the game of basketball, but popular culture and expansion. And if you look at a guy like Magic Johnson, he's been able to not be put into that box of being just a basketball player. He's grown himself as a business mind. He's grown himself even outside of being a player, being a general manager, a president, CEO of many of his businesses. So it's a really interesting topic where I'm really glad that, and it is appropriate that Kyle, because he's able to have those tough conversations and bring those subjects to light. I think that Kyle was the right guy to do it, and it's very powerful coming from him.
Right. College players coming right into the league from high school, do you think that's a good thing?
I think you're going to see it. I think it's going to be within the next 3 to 5 years. I believe that that's a choice that players should have, especially when you're able to attain your goal at such an early age, and you don't necessarily have to go through the whole process of going to the NCAA. But then I look at a guy like Zion Williamson, and he got to be mentored and coached by Coach Krzyzewski, who I've was able to play. I was with USA Basketball in 2010 in Istanbul, won a world championship, and in 2012, Olympic gold medal in the London Olympics. So that, I think, is a beautiful thing. I would have had the opportunity to go straight from Lake Oswego High School to the NBA when I was 18 years old, but I got to play under Ben Howland at UCLA, got to make lifelong friendships, and at least have a small impact in that year at UCLA on the university. So it's tough for me to say that I wouldn't have gone to college, but when you have that opportunity, like most sports do, maybe outside of football or the NFL, to achieve your dream and start making money for not only yourself, but to be able to take care of your family and start building your business, I think it can be really powerful, especially at that age. And I think Adam Silver and the league are going to do the right thing.
You seem to be a fashion guy a little bit, right? You're interested in that. You worked as a Banana Republic style ambassador,
Sure.
right? Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, actually, I'd worked with Banana Republic for what, I think it was 4 years, and that relationship continued to evolve, and they're, a classic American brand. So I think it really, we talked about authenticity, just really fit who I am. I had people that understood who I am, as well as kind of where I wanted to go. I was in that relationship continued to grow into where I was able to make my own capsule collection this last fall, which was very, very special.
Now you got a place in New York too now, where you're like in the
Well,
center
yeah,
of
that's
all
where I
the
put all
fashion,
this stuff now,
right?
right? Yeah. So no, I just moved to Tribeca, and this will be the first summer. The last 11 off seasons I had lived in LA and trained in LA, and now I finally transitioned at 30 years old to New York. So I found all the places where I'm going to work out and train.
Grown up and moved to New York. It's like, who's that tall guy walking around
Yeah,
Tribeca?
I can,
right?
kind of
Yeah.
put my hat
No,
down and move
they're New
freely.
Yorkers. They don't bother
They
people.
don't.
You'll see.
They don't.
You'll see. Let's do a lightning round of
Okay.
some questions here. So what would you say to someone who's struggling with life or career challenges? What advice would you give them?
I would just say, I got a whole laundry list of things I could say, but no, I always say speak your truth. Nothing haunts us like the things we don't say, and that was something that I wish, at least from when I was younger, I wish I would have had that just embedded in my mind, because there were so many things that I held on to when I was young, and have been able to, whether it be through therapy or just through friends that had missed it, just being able to speak my truth, and it's pretty liberating. So I would say, fight your fights like you live your life. I mean, there's 100 things. I don't mean them to sound like cliches.
Yeah, leave the other 99 on the table.
Right,
okay.
but no, that's a number of things I could say.
All right, biggest challenge in your life and how you overcame it and learned from it. You may have spoken to that a little already.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just goes with the, I think injuries are a part of sport as well. I could go another way, whether it be my shoulder and, having to deal with overcoming, injuries in sport, but also dealing with the loss of my grandmother was tough. That was, I never allowed myself to go through the grieving process. I think everybody experiences loss at some point in their life, but when you couple that with, dealing with every single day that anxiety and those bouts of melancholy or depression, if you don't deal with that in the time being, it can send you down a nasty spiral or a slippery slope.
Okay. Biggest role model, what did you learn from them? And what kind of person should you look for in a role model?
I think there's been a few. I think one of them is probably my agent. He always tells me, okay, I'm going to speak to you as my friend, as your friend, or your agent, and then I'm going to speak to you as your friend. And I think he's been definitely a mentor-like figure to me. He's
Who's that?
Jeff Swartz is his name, yeah. And he has a beautiful family, beautiful wife, 3 daughters, and he's been somebody who's, kind of shown me the way and, I guess lives his life, who's to say in the right way, but for me, it's kind of who I want to aspire to be. And then a former teammate, James Jones. He's now the president and general manager of the Phoenix Suns. And, he's been somebody, another, beautiful wife, great family, 3 kids, that definitely aspire to be as well, because he seems to have done all the things the right way, and even at his age, mid-30s, he just seems to have all that wisdom that takes a lifetime to acquire.
Okay. Life is full of supporters and haters. What would you say to someone who is impacted more by the haters than the supporters?
That might not even be true. I think it's you kind of seek or you find what you want to find. Your eyes are, it's funny, you could hear, 100 good things, compliments, praise, but if you see that one person that's, just wants to see the world burn or wants to be a keyboard warrior, you tend to focus on that. So I think it's just quieting your mind, taking, 6 deep breaths and, understanding that, it's think about things in terms of intent. I think when so many people, there's so many talking heads, and people want to get into your brain, you have to find a way to not allow them to do that, because that's their own version of their dream and their life. It has nothing to do with you most of the time.
So you can't always listen to Stephen A. Smith.
I like Stephen A. I like his role that he plays, because I think he. I mean, we talk about growth of the game. It's a big part of why we have these massive contracts and TV contracts, is because you have these, for lack of a better term, talking heads that are passionate about what they do. They will kind of be high and low as far as praise and as far as beating people down. But no, Stephen A. has been around for a while.
He is actually a talented person.
And he's actually a great dude.
Right.
If you catch him away from being the Stephen A. that we see on camera, he's an awesome dude.
That's great to hear. Last question, Kevin, and that is, this show is called Influencers, and so I'm curious, how do you see using your influence on the world?
Yeah, I think a lot like I mentioned with Magic, and a lot like I mentioned with the players today in our game, just to being able to use our reach, use our platforms, our social influence, and the global game. There is so much positive that we can push forward in our everyday life, whether it be basketball, pushing kids into sports, whether it be education, like I mentioned with LeBron, whether it be getting your body moving or taking care of your brain at an early age, or because basketball kind of transcends any age too. So I think we have a massive platform to be able to influence a number of people in this world, and we're not put inside that box, especially from Adam Silver and everybody at the league. They push us to do great things, not only on the hardwood, but outside of that. And I think it's only going to continue to trend in that direction and be a special time for not only NBA players, but athletes all around.
Cleveland Cavalier basketball star Kevin Love, thanks so much for coming by, Kevin.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
You've been watching Influencers. I'm Andy Serwer. We'll see you next time.